was important then that we depict how Buddhism got from India to China and some of the trade goods along that route. So that's what the next segment is about. This will be on the wall, and next to it will be, what did we do with those things? These little, about the cities, these things will be framed, they're framed already, they'll be on the wall. These are the various, we picked out 6 main cities. Gandhara, in the west, you'll see them here, Gandhara, Khotan, and Kucha, and they're red on the map. And on the right, Dunhuang, Chang'an, and Loyang. And I've added another one here today because it's important. But these will be on the wall with all the information right on there, and you'll have your cheat sheet. So I will not have to memorize. Red square. My map here spans about 5,000 miles. On the one border is Baghdad, and on the other border, the Pacific Ocean, and Loyang is out that way. Okay, biography of Sakyamuni Buddha is made, and the place where this style of sculpture developed. All right. The next is Khotan, and there he is, Faxian. Why? Because he lived in Khotan for a while, and Khotan is important because on the Silk Route, it is the place where there's another route that comes in that drops down to India. India is not on the Silk Road. The Silk Road's above it. The only way to get down there is to walk through the mountains, and you can imagine they couldn't go across the Himalayas. So at Khotan, there's a way to go through the Hindu Kush, and there's a small city, and then they drop down into India. Khotan, there was a major, intersection that is very important. And it's the place that Faxian lived for a while, and he had to walk through that mountainous cut through to get down to India at 60. Wow, love this guy. Yep. Kucha. Kucha's great. Kucha's on the North Silk Route. Kucha is about 60 or 70 kilometers below Kizel, which is where the cave art is, where this picture comes from. And most of our musicians and dancers in the mural are out of the Kuchan cave art. This was a place where cultures blended. We had the Indian culture, the Western Asian and Middle Eastern, and Chinese. And it came together in these very interesting musicians. And too bad, Mario, we don't have that little song you could play, huh? Do you have it in your phone? Hello? Okay, okay. Well, I mean, just the musical intro is so good.
You want me to sing it?
No, not the whole song, just the music, because he made this wonderful garage
I have it on the computer, but it's not final.
I know. We're working on a song.
We're working on it.
We had the kids sing it, but the point I'm trying to make is that...
It sounds really wonderful.
It's really nice. And the way the instrumentation is blended by Mario is perfect, because...
We blended Indian and Chinese into one.
Exactly.
With a little heavy metal, just kidding.
Through that.
Indian and Chinese into one, and made it with a wonderful piece of music.
And a little country.
Yeah.
We
Thank
did.
William.
We did. Lucinda Williams. But the point is that these musicians and dancers were greatly sought after, and they were very popular. So whenever there were festivals and things, they showed up, just like, you know, the, what do you call them? Whenever there's a carnival, those fried things show up. What do you call them?
The cakes?
Yeah, those little funnel cakes, yeah. It's sort of like the funnel cakes, right. The Kuchan dancers and musicians would come. And so our mural depicts several people from Kucha because they were popular, and they had this exotic music. And that's what we were going for in the song. Okay, so Kucha's great. It would have been a fun place to visit, I think. Okay, now we get over this side in the main Chinese portion, and we get to Dunhuang. Dunhuang is very important because it's a fork between really 3 deserts. It's where they had to make a choice whether they were going to go on the southern route down through Churchin and Khotan and down to India, or take the top route through Kucha, and they were going to join together eventually at Merv. And this is in your packet. But the point is that Dunhuang was your last chance before you hit the desert. And as a result, as people came to Dunhuang from the west, they often made cave shrines in thanks for a successful journey. And so this cave art began to spring up, and monks took it from there and they continue to make exquisite murals and statuary in the caves. So the Dunhuang Caves would be a place to really visit. And they found a walled-up library in there that contained books. I mean, early, sort of stone books, not paper books, right? Scrolls. Okay. And Lanzhou. I'm including Lanzhou, even though it's not a red city on the map and it doesn't have an explanation. I'm only including it because of the cool history it has. Marco Polo lived there for a whole year of his life. It's on the Yellow River, which kind of goes up and comes down again. And so it's like this oasis, this wonderful, it must be beautiful there. It's the beginning of a corridor across the deserts. And so Lanzhou is important for those reasons. And one more really important reason, Qing was born there. That's why we put Lanzhou.
It has a star on the map because
Chang'an, or Xi'an. This is where the terracotta warriors are. They were made BCE. So by the time of our parades, those terracotta warriors were already a reality. But what was great about Chang'an was it was this big city, and it was a major Buddhist translation center and study philosophy center. The scholars were there, Kumar Jiva, Faxian. But outside the walls of the city, and by the way, those walls are still there, and I have pictures of them, this is where the camel caravans would cluster. And you could only imagine what it would have looked like. And this account comes from the internet here about clustered outside the walls would be these tents and camels and spices and silk, lots of silk. These were the trade goods that would be carried. So this must have been a very colorful, exciting place to see in that time. And then Luoyang. We're going to end in Luoyang, the easternmost portion of the Silk Road. If you go to Xi'an, they're going to tell you they are the place where the Silk Road ends. That's what they tell you, but they're not. It went on to Luoyang, which is where our mural takes place, and the parades took place. And by the way, it's also the peony capital of the world, so it was kind of nice that we were able to get peony napkins, and peonies are on the back of the scroll in the silk as well. Okay, and the only reason, by the way, that these parades took place, I mean, is that the emperors in that area, this is the capital of Northern Wei, adopted Buddhism, and it became popularized from about 503 to 528 to have these parades, maybe not every year, but on Buddha's birthday, these big parades with the dancers from Kucha and the street musicians and magicians, and the people of Luoyang plus nomads and foreigners, foreign monks would come. Bodhidharma was there. So this was a very big event that took place with many causes and conditions that led to it. Okay. Last thing about the Silk Road, I have put the trade goods on here, left to right, what was brought to China, what was taken back from China. So to the west, you know, you've got the Middle Eastern metal, glassware, dates, and so forth. In the middle, we actually up at the top, up at Samarkand, they had these little dogs. And these were brought to China as gifts for the emperor. And a lot of times when you see emperors sitting with little dogs on their lap, they were from Samarkand. India, of course, spices, chili, and Buddhism, because not just goods were brought up the road, but philosophy and religion. The deserts in the middle there, jade and almonds, and then in China, many things. But primary among them would be silk, yards and bales and rolls of it, and tea. Still like that Chinese tea, ceramics. Oh, and I want you to notice the water routes. You see the dotted lines? Those are the way the ships would go. It's important because we aren't labeling any of the ports. The ships had to know. They didn't have signs out there. But what's key here is that heavy goods, like big glass and ceramic, would be brought by ship because it was too heavy for the camels. So the caravans are pretty much carrying silk and feathers and tea, things like that, spices. But the big heavy things, they were on ships. And when ships sunk, Dr. Leicester gives a wonderful talk about this, how they excavated the ships at the bottom of the seas here and found that Chinese glass and ceramics because they were so heavy. Took them that way. So have fun with the Silk Road. Whoa.